Okay, welcome to a Mining for Meaning. It's been a long time since we've done one. This time we're gonna talk about the modern theories surrounding the Big Bang, because there's some parts of it that I can't wrap my head around, and so I thought maybe it would be kind of fun to just sit around and talk about it for a little bit. So, if you take an explosive of some kind and detonate it underwater, assuming that the force is equal everywhere, the explosion is going to be spherical. Same thing if you take that same bomb and set it off in space. Like, it's going to have a spherical explosion. And in my head, that's the way the Big Bang should have worked. Which is why I kind of wrote about it like that in another Mining for Meaning, where we talk about a short story with the Big Bang. Um, But the thing is, science does not agree. According to science, the Big Bang itself was, or is, a cone-like shape, where there's an origin point and the entire universe has blasted out of the singularity in one direction, slowly expanding out towards the end in, well, a cone, like putting a traffic cone up against the explosion, or for all the nerds out there, one giant Kamehameha out into nothingness. And they're saying that slowly those outer reaches of the explosion are slowing down, and that they're going to eventually return back and reform the singularity in some god only knows how far in the future time. And okay, how could an explosion in the nothingness be done in a cone-like shape? Well, the modern theory, the one that just originally was established probably 60, 70 years ago, and may or may not have been confirmed with modern observation, is that we're actually living inside of a black hole. And so somehow a bunch of matter fell into a black hole, went through into the other side, and that would explain the cone-like shape of the universe, because all the matter is going into the hole and then spreading out on whatever the other side might be. That does require a lot of reimagining what the universe or how black holes work, which is just weird. And if you felt tiny and insignificant before, um, think about it this way. If that theory is true, and that we're inside of a black hole, and that's why everything looks like this universe is expanding in a cone-like fashion, that implies that everything we knew about black holes is wrong, and that the black holes within our universe, what we think of as the universe, could contain miniature universes of their own within them, right? Kind of like a Russian nesting doll kind of thing, where you have a universe inside of a black hole that's inside of a universe inside of a larger black hole. And in my mind, that would mean that if there was ever some way that our species could get out of the black hole that we're stuck in, we would be relatively minuscule within that outer universe, right? Because our entire universe is inside one single black hole, which, don't get me wrong, is huge. But then that would imply that our universe is actually tiny compared to the vast universe beyond the black hole we're stuck in. And I don't know how to wrap my head around this concept that, without saying Russian nesting dolls, that we are inside of a black hole, inside of a greater universe, and that greater universe itself could potentially be inside of another black hole of an even grander universe out there somewhere. And there's no way of knowing how far out it could possibly go, because everything we know about matter and physics might only apply within just our universe. But that's still, I don't know, it doesn't sit right with me. this idea because it opens up even more questions of where then does it end? How far out does it go? And so I, of course, because I obsess over these things, have a different kind of theory in my head that I cannot get out of my head. So if we accept that there is a singularity, that it, for some reason, due to some kind of quantum mechanics that I couldn't even begin to explain, did explode, and that explosion, this Big Bang, only went out one side of the singularity, as if there was some kind of irregularity in it, which would explain why there's a cone-like shape. Hopefully you're following me with this. Would it not make more sense for that singularity, with an explosion coming out of only one side of it, to shoot across space like a comet? If that is the case, perhaps our universe is the stardust trail of a singularity shooting across the infinite void, and that what we are seeing as the galaxies is the trail of the leftovers of all this explosion, and the reason the greater or the galaxies at the farthest distance from us are slowing down is not because gravity is pulling them back towards the singularity in some kind of big crunch scenario, but instead they're slowing down because they're getting farther away from the wake of this singularity that is shooting across space and leaving behind entire galaxies in its wake. There's no way I could ever come up with any kind of math that would deal with this, nor could I ever come up with any way of getting into an observation room and seeing the universe isn't expanding. The universe is being left behind by a singularity shooting across the void. And so realistically what that would mean, if that was the case, is that once the singularity runs out of energy, once whatever that thing is, it will leave behind a band across the universe that we can't see beyond. It would also mean that should some kind of big crunch happen, right, as the wake dissipates and the farthest galaxies begin to slow their spin and then recollapse into themselves because there is nothing left pulling on them, that we could, as a species, obviously none of us living would be able to see this, we could escape the big crunch simply by getting out of the band of matter and energy that the singularity left. It also might imply that somewhere out there are other singularities that either are exploding and shooting across the skies or universe, or that are sitting there waiting for something to trigger them. And theoretically, this infinite void could be like a giant canvas where each singularity moving across it is just a single brushstroke of stars and planets and everything else being left behind. The nebulas, the meteors themselves, not meteors, sorry, the comets themselves. What if it's not that the universe is slowing its expansion? What if the singularity is just getting too far away for the inertia to continue, and that we are going to end up with just this band across the universe that we will be able to grow and thrive in and eventually, potentially, escape from, if necessary? It's an interesting way to reimagine the universe that doesn't have that same sense of we are nothing but insignificant specks that this black hole theory brings up. And don't get me wrong, even this theory, within the grand scheme of the universe, like, we are kind of insignificant specks, which is a horrible thing to say, don't get me wrong. Lovecraft did that whole theory as well, that we don't mean anything. But in this way, everything we're seeing, our entire universe, is just one little piece of an infinite void that perhaps somewhere out there, there are other specks just like ours, other brushes just like ours, being painted across the skies. And perhaps, if our species doesn't kill ourselves before then, we can find a way to move beyond our universe and out into the greater void and find other entire universes intact and thriving and waiting for the same thing we are, just to see what else is out there. And I love this theory, and it's a terrifying theory, and I don't know any way to prove it or to even mentally prepare myself for the potential truth of it. But what is our universe made of? Is it just a single explosion that is going outward from the singularity to into the nothingness that will slowly slow down and crunch back into us? Are we living inside of a black hole that at some point will pull all of us into its density and that will be the end of everything? Or are we going to be floating in the endless nothing at the end, searching out other universes that have been painted across the sky? It's kind of a fun and terrifying thought, but I'd love to hear what you guys think. So if you have a thought on it, put something in the comments